going on, everybody? Welcome to Brandon's Face. It's the podcast about a playlist. I'm Jonathan Beardsley.
And I am Brandon May.
We hope all is well. In terms of music news this week, I only have a few items. Olivia Rodrigo made headlines for having access to free contraceptives at some of her live shows in areas where abortion is now illegal. Pretty badass move. Sadly, her management has already caved to political pressure and said this won't be happening anymore going forward, which was inevitable, but kudos to her and her team for doing this in the first place. Any thoughts on this?
Yeah, she should fire her management, and hire a new one because that would be real punk.
Hire Henry Rollins.
Right,
yeah,
exactly. Henry Rollins would be like, fuck yeah, do that.
Dude, there is a number of punk singers that would gladly take that job. But I think it's funny because stylistically, she got some flack for having some pop punk songs on her last few albums. This was probably the most punk thing she's done so far.
For sure.
We can steer away from political talk, though, and talk about something not controversial at all, and that is Kanye West. So Rolling Loud happened last weekend, with Thursday night being headlined by Kanye West and Ty Dolla $ign. When they were added to the lineup, many people online rightfully asked if this was going to be another listening party or an actual performance. Whoever running the Rolling Loud Twitter replied all snarkily with, "Does it say listening party?" and replied to another person just saying the word perform. Turns out, to the surprise of nobody at all, it was another listening party. The article from the LA Times said if there was a mic, we couldn't see it. If he was rapping, we could not hear it. Also, they were on like a circular stage in the middle of the SoFi Stadium parking lot with every smoke machine in the galaxy turned on full for the entirety of the performance. People watching online were very vocal right away. People at the event seemed to kind of enjoy it in real time, but jump on the refund bandwagon not long after. The set, I think, ended after about an hour, maybe slightly before that. Kanye's DJ ended up playing a bunch of his old hits after, which sounds more fun than the actual set, but is kind of just a sad reminder of how great he used to be. So I have a few questions for you based on this. One,
Go.
Do you think Rolling Loud is actually open to legal action for false advertising, or do you think the very loose definition of what constitutes a performance protects them in this case?
If Kanye West was on stage, they should not issue any refunds.
Yeah, I think getting him there was probably a mission in itself.
That was more than 3/4 of the battle, getting him to show up and be there.
Yeah.
The performance aspect of it is, I mean, if I'm Kanye, right? If I'm Kanye, which I'm not, but if I were in that scenario,
thank God,
I'm performing. Even if I'm just hitting play on Spotify, I'm performing.
Mm-hmm. No, I don't disagree with you. I think anybody expecting anything less is kind of beyond their right mind at this point. And honestly, if what constitutes a performance doesn't protect them legally, I'm sure their army of lawyers will.
Let me ask you this. Do you think Frank Ocean still got paid for his one weekend he performed last year at Coachella?
He did. I believe the official statement was they prorated it, though. He did not end up getting the second. Yeah, he did get his money for the one weekend. So I guess if he gets it, anybody would, right?
If that counts, it counts.
But I guess, and just maybe to help me wrap my mind around this, how long do you think people are going to continue to care about these events? Like, if Donda 2 V2222 or whatever the fuck it was not bad enough to get people to see he's wasting their time and their money, what, if anything, will it take? Will it take just the mass culture deciding he's not cool for that many people to not want to go to this event?
That's already happened. What it's really going to take is it's going to take the Yeezys sitting on the shelf. It's going to take him putting out a really actually shitty album, although I would argue that he's done that a number of times. I mean, there's going to be diehards forever, which is odd to me. But, you know, I think the current unironic Kanye West fan of his current music is not the demographic that grew up with Kanye. Those are people that respect Kanye in retrospect.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're anywhere from 19 to 25 years old.
Yep.
And I think
Yeah.
that I made a lot of shitty decisions when I was 19 to 25 years old. And so we're going to let them make their own shitty decisions.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's more than fair, honestly. It really is two different groups of fans too. It's like Dropout through Fantasy and Yeezus through Now, and those are the two groups, you know.
Most definitely. And I mean, look, man, if you show up to a Kanye West performance right now and you are surprised that it is not a performance, that is on you.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
just for real, right? Because, like, if I purchase tickets to a Kanye West show right now, I would know one of two things. One, he's not going to show up. And if he does, tight. If he does show up, this fool ain't singing more than maybe 2 songs without doing something else that could be considered to him artistic and performative while not doing either of those things. Does that make sense?
Oh, it makes perfect sense. It's honestly crazy to look back at his 2010 or 11, I think it was 11 Coachella headlining performance now. Like, he's never going to perform like that again. I honestly don't know if he can. I think that might be part of it.
I have a funny story about that specific show.
Go for it.
You mentioned Kanye West performing at Rolling Loud, and I was already prepared to tell it. So 2011 Coachella, I was there.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to see Kanye West, although I wasn't a diehard at that moment. I was really getting into EDM, and I was really obviously super into, like a lot of the other artists there. Well, Kanye West is about to come on. I have already seen the Strokes that night. I had already seen the Kills, I believe. I had already seen Animal Collective that night, and I was kind of done, bro. I was tired. I was sober. I was sleepy, bro. So we get into the crowd. We're like maybe, I want to say 25, maybe 30, like at most 40 people back from the front of the stage.
Mm-hmm.
We're in the crowd. Kanye West starts. He does his thing where the crane kind of lifts him up into the crowd. Pretty sure he locked eyes with my now wife. And I'm not going to lie, bro. I fell asleep about 3 tracks in.
Did you?
Standing up. I fell asleep standing up. So I remember a couple of moments, right? I remember he had some dancers on stage that were dressed with like wings on it. And I remember
that was like the first 10 minutes. Yeah,
exactly. I remember the performance aspect of the show being really cool, but I fell asleep. So I was there and I didn't get to see it, and he'll never
physically
do it again.
You were there.
And he'll never do it again.
Man, we must not have been that far. I was standing with my back to the fence where the crane was, so that first third of the audience as well. And like, not to veer too far off the main subject, but yeah, that was my first experience in how scary music festivals could be, because a dude just straight up had a seizure, like 5 people in front of me, and nobody could get help. Like, it was impossible at that moment. Yeah, like, luckily he came to and like kind of was able to walk off and get to a medical tent with water and stuff. But man, shit gets crazy in those crowds, man. Be nice to the people around you.
I had that same thing happen to somebody in front of me at the ZHU show at Coachella.
Oh man.
Yeah, I'm sure everybody who's been to Coachella and been around fucked up people has a similar story.
I mean, it used to happen at Warped Tour. Heat stroke would hit people in the pit out of nowhere, man. It
gets hot in California.
So yeah, let's wrap up our news by just putting a public service announcement out there to stay hydrated at music festivals this summer, please.
And if you see Kanye get up on stage with an aux cord and a play button, try to enjoy it.
Yeah, odds are Freddie Gibbs will come out and mime along his part to Back to Me, which he's been doing for like the past month and a half now. Good for him.
Good for him.
All right, let's talk about some music,
Freddie.
Man. We got a lot on the playlist this week. I'm excited to talk about, starting with this new one from Bicep and Benjamin Damage. This one is Chroma 2 Lava. What are your thoughts on it?
Absolute banger. I don't know who either of the other artists are. BDP, Benjamin Damage.
I think that's a combination of Bicep and Benjamin Damage. I think it's a moniker they're using for tracks together.
I know that I love it. It is
Yep.
absolutely insane. It's got that bicep DNA. Even though
Hmm.
some of their songs, like if you put Apricot and Chroma 2 together, like side by side, they're wildly different songs, but you
Hmm.
can tell they're made by the same person. I don't know how you make that DNA in music like this, but Bicep does it.
Talent. That's how you do it,
I
man.
guess. Fuck.
Yeah, we're only two entries into this Chroma series, and it's already a fucking banger, dude. I think I like this one a little more than part one. I can't wait for more.
For
Absolutely
real.
loved it. Got a new one from Neo Archives, Unfinished Business. I was trying to hold off listening to any more of the singles for the album, but I could not resist, man. I'm sorry, but I'm glad I couldn't because this is just another banger.
Yeah, man, this is extremely well put together. She has such like a way with song structures, which normally like
Hmm.
aren't a thing in breaks and D&B, but she finds like this pop sensibility in this track that just she kills it, bro. This is
Yeah,
fantastic.
really good shit, man. Another new Feed Me song on the playlist
Oh
this
my
year.
god.
Praise be. This one's called If Only. What are your thoughts on it?
I love Feed Me's production style, man. I know that that's not a surprise to our longtime listeners nor anybody close to me, but he's got such a way with chords, man. It is just unbelievable. The breaks and the
Hmm.
percussion on this one are astounding, let alone the bass he uses. Dear God.
Yeah, man. I'm a huge fan of the run he's been on. I love the high output, but more importantly, I'm loving the actual songs and the way they're sounding. This is really, really good stuff.
Right.
Got a new one from Kiko and Rodriguez Jr. I thought this one was really solid. Their sounds work well together. I love that high-pitched synth that comes in from time to time.
Right.
And I thought the overall progression was fun. What'd you think about it?
I mean, I've said it before. I'm pretty sure I said it last week. Rodriguez Jr., he touches it. It's gold.
Yep. Another case in point of that. Thank
Right.
you. Dude, all right. I threw this one on a day late because I had to. It's Wave Dash's new track, Had to Go. I cannot believe we almost missed this one. I love this song. I love the artwork. I love all the weird 90s PC graphics they've been using for the streaming aesthetics of this rollout. I'm a huge fan of this one. What about you?
It just absolutely infectious, John.
Yes, yes. I mean, a lot of people are excited for the Justice album and the newly announced Porter album, but I've got my eyes on this Wave Dash one. Whenever they announce a release date for it, I am locked in.
Yep.
Okay, man, it's my song of the week. You already knew that. It's Sippin' Yak by Clooney. I have been waiting for this song to be released since he first started teasing it on social media. I think it blew up a little more than he was expecting it to when he teased it. He said he had just finished it and that the sample was not cleared when he started to play it live. It's kind of shocking how fast he was able to get the sample cleared, considering that's the case. But I think it's probably a little bit easier to get the party to sign off on something if they have reason to suspect it's going to be a hit.
Correct.
Uh, it was a similar case for MK and Dom Dalla last year with Rhyme Dust, and that went
Yep.
on to become one of the biggest dance songs of the year. The legacy of this track is way too early to call, but I could see it being one of the best of 2024 by the time we get to the end of the year. It is that damn good. Did it live up to the hype I put behind it?
I mean, yeah, man, it's fucking great. Like it's a really good track. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, he posted a little bit after it dropped and went number one on Beatport, which I think is his first song to go number one on Beatport, that he was
Hey,
kind of going through
congrats.
some not identity crisis, but doubt in his own sound and whether he should broaden his sound to try and appeal to more people. And it's very nice that he got a hit like this to keep him on track because we need just more straight up bangers like he makes. This
Yep.
is so good. And I think his new Vegas residency is a great fit. I think that those are the
Oh,
types of venues that are going to really appreciate this, honestly.
where is he residing in Vegas?
I honestly do not remember. I think it might be an MGM one.
Got it. So like Hakkasan or something.
It's not Hakkasan. Might have been when I will send you the information afterwards. But yeah,
Sick.
big spot for him for
Yeah.
sure.
Hell yeah. That's awesome.
All right, man. We got a new one from Flo Millie, or I should say the remix of one of her newer tracks, Never Lose Me. This track, the original version came out late last year, but started blowing up earlier this year. So she got this remix with SZA and Cardi B on it. Yeah, we probably should have covered the original. It's obviously a really good song. I was equal parts excited and nervous when I saw SZA and Cardi would be on the remix. Excited because that's a combination of artists that have the potential to create greatness, and nervous because the last thing we need is another remix of a hit song that just makes us wish we were listening to the original version. I'm happy to report they beat the allegations in this case. This remix is absolute fire. Whenever SZA gets into her unintelligible, it's fire. Just enjoy it, man.
Oh
I
yeah.
should have never doubted. I loved it. What about you?
Yeah, I thought that this was great, man. All three of them just fucking kill it.
They do. And we will stay on the Cardi B topic because she dropped two songs in the last few weeks. I figured we'd just cover them back to back. Uh, I don't know if we're getting a new Cardi album this year or not. She said that she's just going to start releasing music as she makes it. I'm not mad at
Good for
that.
her.
There's some really good bars on this track. There's some pretty flagrant ones. The peanut butter and jelly one I'm going to call to mind. There's also some, yeah, pretty nasty ones, but both good nasty and bad nasty. But that's Cardi B in a nutshell, you know. Hopefully we hear more from her soon because I think the rap world is just a better place when she's involved. What did you think of these two tracks?
All right. So this freestyle, there's not anybody on this planet that can say that Cardi B is not a good rapper. And for the Enough track, just got to throw it out there. She's getting better and betterer. John.
I love that pronunciation. Betterer.
Yeah,
All
exactly.
right. So we got a new one from Baby Rose and Bad Bad Not Good. One Last Dance. What'd you think of it?
Yeah, Bad Bad Not Good's instrumental under Baby Rose's raspy, just sultry vocals is just sublime, my man. This is a match made in heaven. Do a whole fucking album.
Hey, Brandon, guess what?
Are they?
Yeah.
Fuck
Yeah, it
yeah.
comes out in a few weeks. I think it's an EP, but yeah, they've
Oh
done
my.
like 5 or 6 songs together. They've been teasing
Let's
the vinyl for it.
go.
Yeah, dude. We knew exactly how this was gonna sound the moment it was announced. Still blew me away. Her voice is something special.
Oh yeah, she kills it. And I've been on a
Yeah.
jazz kick lately, so this is gonna be good.
Yeah, very excited for that. All right, new track from Willow is out, Symptoms of Life, and another person that just keeps getting better and better. It's a dense 3 minutes compared to some of her last two albums, but she makes great use of the extra depth on this one. I'm a big fan. What about you?
This is actually a pretty vast difference over her last album, and I think that
Right?
she sounds great on this style. It's catchy as always. It is a great song, and I hope that we hear more of this style from Willow. I think she's really in a groove right now.
Same. All right, talk to me about this new Hazel English and Daywave track called Jesse.
So I'm a fan of Daywave. Hazel English is, I think we've covered at least a couple of her vocal samples a number of times here. This is a beautiful track, man. I think that her vocals complement Daywave. I think they should collab more often as well.
Yeah, I'm usually not super into weightless bedroom pop like this, but I thought this track was really, really well made, and I would definitely be down to check out some more.
I think it works. If you isolate Hazel's vocals and Daywave's instrumentals, neither of them work. But when you put them together, they work really well.
It's just like this podcast. We're useless without each other, Brandon.
Exactly. A perfect analogy, John. Your analogies are out of control. Everybody knows that.
Everybody knows that. Thanks, bud. All right, we got a new one from Grumster, Bottom Feeder. What'd you think of this one?
This is a band I just found out about. They've got a great energy to them. This was released on Pure Noise, who is having an
Hell
insane
yeah.
couple of years. And
Shout out Pure Noise.
exactly, shout out Pure Noise, because I listened to the song a couple of times, and I was like, who released this? Of course, it's fucking Pure Noise.
Of course.
What'd you
And
think?
yeah, I thought it was a really good track, dude. It's to the point. I don't know why you can't fall asleep if there's blood on your hands, but I believe them when they sing it. So point
Right.
taken.
Exactly.
All right, got a new one from Bayside called Miracle. I'm not a big fan of the lyrics on this one, but it's got that classic Bayside sound. I like the melodies, I like the riffs, and sometimes that's enough. What'd you think of it?
Yeah, man. As a lyric guy, I will agree with you. Sometimes lyrics aren't. I bad lyrics can ruin a song, but they don't
Yes.
make like good lyrics don't make the song. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I don't think that this song was ruined.
No, no, not by any means. It still sounds like Bayside. I think if you're passively listening to it, it's good.
Yeah.
All right, got a new one from Stars Hollow called Sickening. Great song. I could have probably listened to a 10-minute version of this. I'm really hoping we get an album soon. What about
For
you?
real, right? Yeah, man, a little angstier, a little more screamier than their
Yeah.
last track, and I am about it.
Yeah, moved them slightly down towards the heavier section of the playlist this week. Good for them.
Good for them.
All right, let's cap off the singles with this new one from Poolside at the Flamingo. Great name. This track is called Hell on Earth. What'd you think of it?
I got to shout out to my boy Christian, always showing me fantastic bands like this. I love that the name is something most people would like associate with a pina colada, while the music being like the descent into hell.
Yeah.
Incredibly heavy, and I loved it.
Yeah, man, it's really good stuff. I really liked that last breakdown. I love the
Oh,
way it
yeah.
cackles into whatever old-timey sample that is. Very chariot of them.
Right.
Yeah, I dug it.
Right.
Okay, we got a few EPs this week. The first one is from Sweet Pill. It's the Star Child EP. There's only one song on here that we didn't cover as a single. That's Sympathy, and that's actually one of my favorite tracks on the EP. Overall, I thought this was a solid release, but I feel like it could have used another song or two to really feel complete. I'm probably just being greedy, though. What are your thoughts on it?
I think this is the blight of covering music as it comes out, or listening to it as it comes out, because if somebody who didn't know Sweet Pill and somebody was like, hey, they just released a new EP and you got to hear all of these songs in a row,
Hmm.
you for the first time, you'd be like, oh man, this is fucking great. But I feel the
You're
same as
right.
you, because we heard all of these except for Sympathy, and Sympathy's great. I mean, it's one of the best ones on here, but look, man, I have a feeling that Sweet Pill is going to find some great success in the future.
I do too. Yeah, you got to be built different to do this. There's times like 3 days after a song is released, I'm like, God, I've listened to it already way too fucking much.
Exactly.
All right, let's talk about this new one from Dead Icarus, Ad Infernum. What are your thoughts on it?
All right, sir. So we've talked a little bit about Atreyu not being the same since Alex Varkatsas left the band. Well, here's his new project, Dead Icarus, released on MNRK Records. It hits like an old Atreyu album. His vocals are sleek and heavy. The instrumentals are heavier than Atreyu's have been in decades at this point. And I gotta say, I'm excited for the future of this project, as apparently it's his creative control that seems to be what was keeping Atreyu good, at least for my tastes. This
Interesting.
reminded me of a lot of old school metalcore back in the early 2000s. Man, what did you think about
Yeah,
this
dude.
one?
Dude, it's so much fun. This whole EP. It's thrashy, it's campy, combination I'm a huge fan of. And
Right.
it's not afraid to be a little heavier than the type of music like they're portraying typically gets. Tracks can be anthemic 80s thrash before turning into straight metalcore, and they do it in a way that doesn't really feel forced. I
Right.
don't think there's a miss on here, but the Vulture Circle is my favorite track.
Yeah, man. I really like Yesterday Don't Mean Shit a lot, though.
Of course. Of course. You're always a closer guy.
I am. I am.
All right, what are your thoughts on the new Ian Donovan EP, Frontier?
My man, do you remember mixing on your tractor like a decade ago at your
Of
pad in Palm
course.
Desert? I'd been like
Yes.
digging for Tech House in like every avenue available, every corner of the internet, and I stumbled upon Ian O'Donovan. My man, he's still got it. Both of these tracks are great, and as he himself once said, quote, fuck genres, it's all house. I'm super glad that John Digweed of Bedrock Records has picked him up for Bedrock, and if only you would have been able to see my face when I got the push notification to my phone that Bedrock Records has announced a new EP from Ian O'Donovan.
Oh, I'm sure you fucking lost it.
Wait, what the fuck did I just read?
Yeah, man, this is a short EP, but it's an EP nonetheless. And the rare EP where both songs are the exact same length.
Yep.
Both songs sound about how I expected for Ian. Frontier had that super crisp, but not over the top low end. And with Cosmos just being a little more off the rails in a good way. But I was a fan of both these tracks.
Speaking of Bedrock Records and John Digweed, somebody on the internet asked, Sasha or Digweed? and I wanted to throw
Ooh.
that to you. I have an answer, but I want to hear your answer first.
I'm going Sasha. What about you?
Well, the answer is both, but if I had to pick,
You son of a bitch.
it would be Sasha for production, and for mixing and compilations. It's obviously Digweed, right? So like I think they're both really good at two different things.
It's the most pedantic answer I've ever heard, and that's why I love you, Brandon.
Exactly.
That's why I fucking love you. Yeah, I'm going Sasha, and I'm not going to tell you why because I don't have to.
You
Okay.
don't have to. You live in America. Let's go.
We'll get into that later. All right. So let's talk about this new Justin Timberlake album, Everything I Thought It Was. I was happy to see Timbaland produced a few tracks on here.
I know you
That's
were.
about all I was happy with, though, man. It hurts me to say. Justified and Future Sex are two of my favorite pop albums of all time. And at his best, Justin was probably one of my favorite artists. But it's been a long time since his music has made me feel the way that it used to. And that's what it comes down to for me, how it feels. This album is the classic case of it sounds like, but it does not feel like. And I'm not really sure what could have been done to avoid that at this point. On top of that, it's poorly paced. The features make no sense at all. No, I'm not talking about you, Toby. I would never talk about you.
I would
And the
never.
NSYNC track is boring as fucking hell, man. I'm giving this one a 3. My standout is What Lovers Do, and that's only because it sounds closest to the Justin Timberlake I like, not because it's good. What did you think of this one?
Infinity sex, John. Infinity, not infinite. Infinity. So going into this, I knew
You
that
don't
the
like art?
singles. I knew that the singles actually weren't very well received by the general public, and I liked them well enough. We talked about as a couple of them dropped, and we covered them. I went into this with an open mind, and when I sat down to actually listen to it, there's nothing of substance here, John. There's no
No.
production curveballs besides like maybe the guitar riff in Sanctified. Toby's part in that song is not. It's blander than I thought it was gonna be. How's that? This whole album is bland, bro. I don't like hate any specific song. It's just fucking boring, John. Every time I tried to sit down and listen to the whole thing back to back, I got bored. So bored, in fact, that I never did finish it all the way through. I have listened to every song on this album, but in halves. Because, of course, in 2024 and a pop album, it is 18 fucking songs and over an hour and 15 minutes long.
Way too long.
Like I said, man, none of this album to me is necessarily bad. It's like a typical topical pop album that like incorporates all the modern trends and tropes like rinse and repeat. I really have nothing else to say. It's somewhere between a 3 and a 4. I couldn't really pick a standout. It's because nothing stands out. Nothing stands out from this album.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. And I think that like the concept he was going for and a song like Selfish being the lead single and him thinking that he's being open and honest without ever really revealing a single fucking thing about himself on this album was going to be somehow more ahead of the times than the over autobiographical pop we've come to expect, especially over the past 4 or 5 years from the current pop stars. He's just so behind the times. I'm I think it was Pitchfork that kind of said he may have benefited from Timbaland's best era more than anybody, and that he's doing the same thing more or less that he was then. It's just not working now. Like the game has changed, and if he thinks this is gonna do it, it's really just not, you know?
I think that's an interesting point, and I think that even people who are like super into pop music are just begging for something vulnerable, something that lets you in, something that like incorporates more than just infinity sex, you know? And I agree with that. I think I do too. I think that's why Caroline Polachek put out the best pop album last year. You know what I'm
I
saying?
think
Like,
I think like most things, the problem is the guys. It's not the girls. The girls write beautifully, dude. Like think of the big male pop stars equivalent to Justin Timberlake or ones that are on the same trajectory. We got Jungkook, we got I'm trying to think, Harry Styles. All of their most recent albums, while may have some good catchy songs, have zero substance to them. Like they're not substantive albums. Troye Sivan's is probably the deepest of them, and that's meant to
I
be
was
a
just gonna say.
lighthearted album. It's not that deep, really. It's just deep compared to the showers that are current pop music. But yeah, that's why people like Chapel Roan, who just put out her Tiny Desk today, and is just leagues ahead of so many of the guys when it comes to actually talking about your life and still making good music around that.
And I kind of like also don't blame Justin for not opening up because well he's been under a lot of flack lately, and while you and I tend to avoid controversy on this podcast, he has lots of it that follows him right now.
Yeah.
And I kind of don't blame him for not wanting to open up, but I think that if he had this album and his subsequent tour, obviously, that I think he just announced, would probably do better if he just put his side out there.
Yeah, and
Even if it's the
one,
shitty side, which it probably is, even if it was that and he owned it,
exactly.
at least people would respect that he owned it.
You're completely right. And I think one, not responding to it at all is one way to go, probably not the right way. Responding honestly is the right way to go. But he tried to be cool about it. Like he started doing his first few shows to promote the album, and then when he would do Crimea River, he would say like no respect into the microphone, or like I want to apologize to absolutely nobody. Like
Yikes.
bro, fucking A, like you
Yikes.
do realize the second you get past this Britney thing, the Janet fans are cracking their knuckles waiting to beat the shit out of you next. Like it's never going to be over for this guy, and you can't say he didn't ask for it, you know?
Cue the SpongeBob scene where it's how many times we got to teach you this lesson, old man? Like,
All right,
bro.
let's move on there. We are not going to end it on a better note than the SpongeBob scene. All right, let's talk about this new Fortet album
Can
3,
we
man.
please?
What are your thoughts on it?
All right, man. This dude does this music so fucking well. This is Fortet's 14th studio album, I believe. He has to be one of the hardest working guys like in music, man. He's everywhere. He helped headline Coachella last year after doing many pop-up shows with Fred and Skrillex, not to mention the scheduled shows that he's done. He's also gone on tour with his Squid Soup show and has just proven himself to be a workhorse, as he's even had time to produce another album between all of these things. Released as 3. This is prolific, if you ask me. This record is a mostly chill album that kind of starts off with Loved and transitions into like the super chill, gliding through everything. But there are some moments on this that feel like a fever dream, though, like Daydream Repeat, that really has Forchet channeling his inner Aphex Twin with all that distortion and fuzz,
Mm-hmm.
especially coming after a track like Storm Crystals that just washes you with calm and serene energy. I think tracks like Skater, he really tends to shine. Like you can tell he's just in the studio vibing when making tracks like this. 31 Bloom has a kick drum that I don't think I've ever heard before. I don't know how that's possible. And his incorporation of breaks like in muted silence between the lines is, God, it's
Mm-hmm.
masterful, man. On my first listen, I loved it. On my second listen, I really loved it. On my third listen and beyond, I was just in awe, man. This dude has a way with producing music that just feels human and organic, and I love this album. It's an easy 9 for me. My standout is I'm gonna pick 2 standouts, 3 drums, but is an amazing 8-minute closer. But I think my favorite is gotta be the Daydream Repeat,
Of course.
and
I think
Daydream Repeat's my song of the week.
Ooh, okay. Song of the week, Daydream Repeat for Brandon this week. Um, I You liked it a little more than I did, but I really enjoyed it as well, man. This sounds pretty much how I expected, not just based on the singles, but just based on it being a new Fortet album. He's been your
Right.
favorite producer's favorite producer for decades now. But that doesn't always translate into a great album experience. In this case, he put out a great fucking album. It's really patient, it's nuanced. Maybe it's a little too nuanced at times for me, but everything that he's trying to convey is coming through loud and clear. That doesn't always mean that I'm in the headspace for an album like this, kind of similar how you were with the Lofi song last week. And more often this than not this week, I don't think I was in the right headspace for this. It happens. My personal headspace aside, though, there were some moments I looked forward to whenever this one came on, but sadly, no country rhythm drops out of nowhere like I was hoping for. I know that's not his song, but that would have been great in the middle of Skater somewhere.
Even just like a little sample.
Yeah, just a little tease. Anyway, I'm going to give it a 7 for now. My standout is also Daydream Repeat, though.
Crazy track.
So fucking good. Whenever yeah, I don't know if it's a xylophone, whatever the fuck he's channeling there.
Sure.
Incredible shit. Yeah, exactly. All right, man, let's talk about this new ZHU album, Grace. I'm not sure at what point I went from loving his vocals to hating them, but it's been really hard for me to get past it. It's not even so much his voice as it is his lyrics. The never-ending fuckboy thing is tired, and it's just hard for me to not roll my eyes and cringe at most of the stuff he sings now. If he wasn't such a damn good producer, I would have stopped listening to him a long time ago, but he still has the ability to drop an absolute banger from time to time. He does so immediately to open the album. Crossroads does a great job showcasing the types of drops that make his music so fun to listen to for me. He follows that up with a really fun Beat Roots collab. The album starts to lose me a bit after that. The themes get less subtle as it goes on, too. Song titles like Grace Him, Preach, Praise, Risk and Consequence are about as direct as you can get with a project like this. I won't bring the runtime into this because I think that the last songs are just the Days Before Grace EP he released last year tacked on. It does show as a disc too if you're looking at the album on the page, but it's hard to tell that case otherwise. The delayed rollout for this one had me hoping it'd be a little more focused than his last few projects. That's sadly just not the case. It's as much of a mess as his last few projects have been, if not more. I'm giving it a 5. My standout is Crossroads. What do you think of this one?
Well, John, you and I talked a little bit of shit about ZHU's new sound when the singles were dropping, and I'm actually a little pleasantly surprised that he's proven me a little bit wrong. Well, like a little bit. There's something to say here, John. So when the Night Day EP dropped, I think it was like 2014, everyone was trying to emulate him. Faded was heard at every club and every festival in 2014 through to 2015. And there's a very clear reason why his music has been pretty fairly received over the last decade of work. He's good at making music, John. He proves that time and time again, and even if some of his projects aren't for me personally, which is the case for at least half of this album, it's clearly very well made. This album is emulating The Weeknd hard, for sure. It's not quite derivative, but it's most definitely an attempt at emulation, and I think that after one has been successful at a variety of things, I understand ZHU thinking, well, why not try something new, right? I don't think this space in music necessarily needed to be filled, but I'm kind of glad that he still went for it. It's got a lot of his vocals in like a more chorus verse format on a bit of this album, and I personally don't think that that's for me. I also think that he is leaning on the collaborations that he did on this one a little bit too much. Out of 23 tracks, there are 13 collabs. That is well over half the album. And again, something a pop artist would do rather than an experienced producer. That being said, I think the album cuts on this one, he actually does pretty well, dude. The production is done very well and the vocals are varied. He's trying to hit some big notes. Doesn't hit all of them, but most of the time he succeeds. I listened to this a few times, but I'm definitely not going to be coming back to it very often. It's good. It's very long, but it doesn't really seem as long as it is. If that makes sense. It's like some creative experimentation that like works on some moments and some that really doesn't work well at other moments. It's interesting at the very least. And if I were a betting man, I would say that his next album will be far more polished and cohesive than this one, as this one feels really disjointed due to all of the styles he's trying to bring in. But I think he's going to pick one one style for his next record. I think it's going to be pure The Weeknd emulation, and I think he's going to make a cohesive album out of it, and I don't think it's going to be terrible. But this one isn't my favorite. It's somewhere between a 5 and a 6 for me. My standout is that Bloody Beetroots collab, the Rolling song.
I miss the Beetroots. Glad to see him back.
Right.
All right, man. Let's talk about this new one from Tierra Whack. The album's called Worldwide Whack. I think Tierra Whack has never just been a rapper. Like her debut visual mixtape was a little bit of everything. Her next series of mixtapes were actually titled Pop, Rap, and R&B, literally spelling out the different sounds she's trying to encompass. The issue for me is that I think I'm really only a fan of Tierra the rapper, and more specifically, I'm a fan of her rapping over either up-tempo or very bass-heavy music. I'd say most of her music blurs lines, so I'm usually able to enjoy aspects of all of it, but the songs that make me want to come back years and years later, tracks like Dora, Peppers and Onions, Millions, haven't left my rotation since dropping, and that's just because of the way they're so fun to listen to. Misbehave is probably going to be joining them after this week. But the rest of the album, even though good, very, very lyrically revealing, much deeper than I was expecting at times, just doesn't seem like something that's going to stick with me personally for very long. I'm going to give it another listen in a few weeks to see if it hits me differently, but I'm not really loving it yet like I thought I would. I'm going to give it a 6 for now. My standout is Misbehave. What do you think of this one?
Well, so I know that we reviewed a few of the singles, and quite honestly, I still didn't really have any idea of what to expect. This is a funny album. She clearly doesn't take herself very seriously on this, and I on moments on this rather. And
outside of 27 Club, yeah,
I absolutely love it. I didn't like Chanel Pit when it dropped, but after hearing the whole album, it fits really well, and her sense of humor is showing in every single song, even when she's being serious. Some of her jokes didn't really land for me, but I gotta say, man, it's really nice to see a mix of sense of humor and vulnerability like this in rap. Rap, as in a general sense, takes itself far too seriously. I mean, I enjoyed this for what it is, man. It's a testament to her talent as a rapper and her talent as a singer, and a fun little moment in this corner of music for 2024. Not all of it hit for me, but I did enjoy the album as an entire project. Invitation is going to be my standout, simply because she's mixing Adidas and Nike. I love it when I catch people in the wild wearing Adidas with Nike socks or vice
Brand
versa.
match.
It's a 6 for me.
Yeah, same. Okay, man, we got a new one from Rezz. Can You See Me? What'd you think of this one?
We sure do. All right. What is Rezz? Is Rezz a metalcore band? Because the quote, "my heaviest materials coming out," unquote, puts an expectation on the music that I unfortunately, like many other metalcore bands that have said that exact same thing, don't think that she lived up to. Sure, this album is heavy, but it's not the heaviest dub I've ever heard, even from her, right? I did like the album. It's a breezy listen at just like a half hour, but it still left me wanting more substance. I think she found a tone that works for her a long time ago. And while I love her production style, and again, I think most of the music on this album is good, I think I'm starting to become a little weary of the sounds. It's okay as an album. Most of the tracks are like they're really good on their own merit as singles. And I think that might have been the better way to release this whole thing, maybe 2 EPs or a few 3-song drops rather than a whole project, because I was a little weary at the end of it. It's a 6 for me. My standout though is Maleficent.
Good track.
What'd you think?
I enjoyed listening to this album, but it's a lot of the same. I think the opening 2 tracks are the strongest, and I think the album cuts are solid, but Spiral is one of my favorite electronic albums of the decade so far, and everything she's put out since has failed to reach those same highs for me. But there's always a few bangers to enjoy whenever she releases a new project, and that's once again the case here. If recent history is anything to go by, we will not have to wait long to hear whatever she's working on next. Personally, I'm hoping for some more Rezz Mouse tracks this year,
Yeah.
but I am going to try to enjoy these for a little while longer. She's been doing pretty high output the last few years. I also have it as a 6. My standout is the title track, Can You See Me?
Nice. Yeah, that's a great way to open the record.
Yeah. All right, man. Talk to me about this new Oscar Mulero album, The Beauty of Leaving a Legacy.
All right. Oscar Mulero, for people who may not know, people who aren't in a giant techno hole like I am, is a just one of the legends at this point, man. He has been performing and DJing for, I think, close to 20 years now. Dude has owned record labels. He's put productions out on many different record labels, and I'm very glad that we got a full album from him. This dude is a master of hypnotic techno. He just has a way of making proper tunes, man. I could go on and on about like specific synth work on tracks or like the masterful use of like percussion that he does on this record, but honestly, I just won't. Anyone who likes techno at all should listen to this album. I think it speaks for itself, much like Mulero's live sets. I loved it. I thought it was really cool that whenever I was in the mood for techno, which happens to be often, I was able to throw an entire album on by Oscar fucking Mulero when I was in the mood for it. This is a great techno record. It's hard to review techno albums because they're not meant to be cohesive, but on the level of a compilation of fantastic techno tracks, this is great. It's somewhere between a 7 and an 8 for me, probably more so. Fuck it, it's an 8. My favorite track on this one is Delegation, simply for that weird bass line that he does. Dear God. What did you think about this one, man?
Man, we feel very differently about it, but you actually nailed the exact reason why. It's hard to review an album like this because as a whole work of art, it's just an hour of claustrophobic club music. You really need to kind of break these into different things altogether or listen to them in a way that's mixed together to kind of get the full effect. There's songs I really did think were good. Goals and Other Perceptions and Exclusive Characters stood out on my few listens. But I did find it to get a little repetitive when it came to tone and tempo after a while. I will still be down to check out future releases of his if we are still lucky enough to get them. I know he's been doing this for quite a while. But I don't know if this album was for me, at least in terms of coming back to it. I have it between a 5 and a 6. My standout is Exclusive Character on this one.
That's fair, man. Yeah, it's weird to review techno albums.
It is.
Like
EPs are more manageable for some reason.
right, and Mulero doesn't put out a whole lot of albums, so when he released one, I was like, "Yep." But but like other than that, it's hard because the tracks aren't meant to be cohesive. In fact, the tracks that he produces are meant to be mixed, and on a record that is very much not mixed, I can see how it can get like that. So
Yeah. Totally. All right, we got one more album to talk about this week. It's Defect Designer's album Chitin. What are your thoughts on it?
This is actually released on one of my favorite metal labels, Transcending Obscurity Records. We have the band back for their 4th studio album. I believe they're based now out of Oslo, Norway, and they have this like frigidness to their music that is apparent, I think, mostly in the instrumentals. They do death metal in the way that black metal normally is done, if that makes sense. They have the right idea for a lot of this album. There's like a ton of riff ideas that I think really work. I just think most of these songs, or maybe the recordings, needed a little bit more time in the oven. There's like a number of parts on this album where I'm like, man, that double kick is just like off time. That riff is fantastic. If only if it was a half step earlier. I think they just needed a little bit more time in the oven for my personal taste. What I do love about this album, though, I love the way that it's mixed and mastered. It's raw as hell, bass forward, distortion up. I think that the curveballs they throw us with like the classic rock moments and like the slower moments that they kind of pepper in are pretty neat. I liked it, but there was something that was missing for me, and I think if they had recorded the instruments a little bit tighter, it would have worked better for me personally. I know a ton of people in the metal community tend to like prefer this off kilter stuff, and I love different time signatures, but this was less different time signatures and more just like not timed well. I did not enjoy this as much as I wanted to, nor as much as I thought I would. It is between a 5 and a 6. I liked it more than I didn't like it. So it's somewhere between there. What do you think about this one, man?
I agree with you, man. It's a weird album. I mean that as a good thing. Like it's got so much going on and so many times it could go so wrong, but I think more or less they do pull it off. For me, I'm just not a giant fan of the vocals on this one, so I found myself gravitating towards the more instrumental heavy tracks, but overall I thought it was a decent album still. Like you, I have it between a 5 and a 6. My standout is Simulacrum, I think is how you would pronounce it. That one absolutely
Simulacrum?
rips. Yeah, that one rips.
I forgot to give you my standout. We will need your chitin.
Of course, of course. Is that how you pronounce it? Chitin?
Yes, that's what I was taught when I was training in pest control. Chitin is the material that makes up the exoskeletons of insects.
That's pretty fucking metal. All right,
I think
bumping it
so.
up a score. All right. All right, man. That does it for us this week. We will be back again next week. We got new releases dropping tonight from Empress of, Fletcher, Future and Metro Boomin, Gary Clark Jr., Julia Holter, Matt Champion, Shakira, Sir, Tyla, the Veronicas. There's all sorts of shit coming out. I'm
Yikes.
sure we will be covering the best of it next week. Follow along with the playlist the podcast is based on so you can keep up with what we will be talking about on next week's episode. It's updated every Friday night. You can find us on Instagram and Reddit as well. Just search Brandon's Face Pod. Until next time. Peace.
Peace.